Welcome to another episode of Out Loud and Laughing. Get ready. It's Bryan and Jon, two gay cousins having big talks and even bigger laughs. Join us. Let's see what they're up to. It's Out Loud and Laughing. Back to another episode of Out Loud and
Laughing with Bryan and Jon.
Oh, hi, Bryan. I have a feeling that this one might not have so much laughing in it.
I mean, this is probably based on these texts that I've sent you and why I am not
Bryan,
sure.
let's tell everybody what happened. Let's bring everybody up to speed. I just want everyone to know this is happening in real time. We don't typically post episodes this quickly, but like we just felt the need to. Bryan, I have to give it to you. Just please tell everybody what's going on. This is amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I thank you. I'm pissed,
Yeah.
right? And you know this based on all the texts. So I'm not gonna really name names or businesses because I don't want to go that, but I just want to kind of, to your point, bring light to like the situation. And I think what's interesting is people who don't walk in our shoes take for granted how much privilege they have and the things that they don't have to deal with. So I'll start there at a very macro level. And so my daughter is going to kindergarten in the fall, right? So in her current school, they're doing cheesy little graduation pictures, which is super cute, right? They did it on like, I don't know, maybe last week or the week before, and we finally got the proofs. And we open up the proofs, and there's like 10 different, versions of different, holding a diploma, and blah, blah, blah. There is one picture of her holding a sign saying, "Stop crying, mom."
Can you explain that really quick, first of all? So it's basically a sign saying, like, this is such a cute photo, mom. Look at me. Now you're crying. So just stop crying.
Exactly. It's supposed to be like cheeky. So for a kid that has a mom, it's like, "Stop crying, mom. I'm graduating," like super cute, which in theory would be fine if she had a mom. And and it was one of those moments where you realize that, okay, the vendor had no idea that, because it's a vendor that comes in to take the pictures. And so the vendor had no idea, which means the school didn't mention anything, which means my daughter was handed a sign that had a three-letter word on it where she's starting to read. And so how does she not get confused? How does she not question that, why am I holding this sign? Because she's very well aware that she doesn't have a mom. And we've done a really good job of educating her that all families are special, right? Some people have two moms, some have two dads, and some have a mom and a dad, and all families are special. And even some have one parent, or some are raised by grandparents. Like, she just knows that all families are special in their own way as long as there's love in the household. So we've done that. But when things are almost like quote unquote forced on her, like, here, hold this sign for this picture, how can it not make her question what norms are and what norms aren't, you know? And so I'll stop there if you have any questions before I go into like how we kind of dealt with that.
Yeah, I just want to thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. First of all, I know that's probably really tough to A, deal with, and then B, share, because to some degree you're wondering, like, am I making it too big of a deal about this, or where does this sit or live in my life? And
Yeah.
then we're also like probably also grappling with, how do I explain this to my child? Whereas, in a heteronormative household, like, school pictures and receiving them home typically meant like, how did the hair look, or like how funny or silly were the smiles or poses, and you didn't even get to like look at that because you were sort of frozen by the fact that like you felt disregarded once again. So yeah, I want you to continue, but that's sort of, those were some of the things that came to mind while I was listening.
Yeah, I think those are all spot on in that, you know, in a hetero like couple parent family, they're more worried about, was my kid's hair good? Like, they don't have to think that their kid's going to be waving a LGBTQ flag in their graduation pictures. And not that I would want that, but they don't have to worry about that. And so, I think we took a step back. We were definitely very heated and pissed in the moment. And we're in a climate right now, which you and I are living in real time, where our community is being questioned, it's being challenged, and it we're almost being like put aside I mean, to the point where they removed a letter from LGBT. Like, the trans community is part of our community. So the fact that they're dropping a part of us is you and I losing a limb, like it's this is deep. And so I think all that anger and all that rage for me is turning into a voice and a level of confidence to speak up for myself, in times where we likely would have just like maybe said something in real time to the person or the school when we saw them, because there's other pictures, other graduation pictures. She has many cute ones. Don't get me wrong. We don't have to buy that one. But I'm turning it into a place to say, no, I have a place in this world. What you did was wrong. And I'm going to say it. Right. So Adam and I wrote an email to the school and we copied in everyone and we talked, it literally titled it Misrepresentation. And we went deep and we just talked about how inappropriate this is. We're not the only gay parents at that school. So this isn't like new. Kenzie's also been there for 4 or 5 years. And this is unacceptable. Right. And we immediately got a phone call from the school. This was like a Saturday. So the fact that they were calling, I think they knew immediately that this was a huge error. But Adam and I were ready to pick up the phone. Right. And we didn't. We had just sent it. I get it in their world. It's they just want to fix this and move on from it very quickly, and not have it be a thing. But for Adam and I, it is a thing, and we needed some more time, and I didn't want to have a conversation. So I waited till Monday to finally respond back, go back and forth a little bit. But it's interesting how people are so quick to want to be an ally. So it's more around, oh, well, that was the vendor. That wasn't us. Well, you hired the vendor. So it is you, right? And you need to, if it's important to you to promote inclusivity and stuff, then you want to make sure that anyone that you bring into the school is also aware of your standards. So what was good is the school is completely revamping. They're making sure they build things into the process so these things don't happen again because it is so fundamental to who they are. And I never thought it was in malice and like, ill intended, but it was sloppy. And I think it's important for the school to recognize that, take ownership, say, we messed up and we will not do this again. And we ended up getting there to that point, which is good. I think the other thing that I did on top of that was there's some other LGBTQ families in the school. Some of them are same-sex mom relationships. And I wanted to bring it to their attention, which I did, because if their child was holding that sign, they would have assumed that Kenzie would be holding a dad sign, right? Because they're a two-mom family, they would just assume. And so I wanted to bring it to their attention because they are an ally and it's important for them to know that that happened because they wouldn't have known otherwise. And it's not like I'm trying to like get a coalition to like go beat down the door. It was just more to say like we should all band together to make sure that like these things don't happen for our children.
I don't think I don't think you need to justify
Yeah,
that validation. I had already written down here in terms of trying to follow up, like what was the experience of other gay parents, and I actually didn't even think about whether there was two lesbians or not, and then that hi mom sign sort of hiding, right? Like sort of in plain sight of like it not being done for somebody with gay dads and them thinking that possibly it was like a nod to them, right? So I don't think it's about you forming a coalition. I think it's really smart for you to say, this was our experience as a sex couple. If you received this photo, Kenzie had it too. I don't think it was, an intent. Like that's the thing. The intent wasn't there. Yeah.
exactly. I think and again, this isn't like we're trying to like start something or we want to be angry about this. Like we were upset. We have moved on. We've said what we need to say, but I wanted to turn it into an education moment, right? I've had conversations with people, including like my parents, obviously talking to like you, who obviously an ally because you are me. But it was just like making sure that people understand that we are going through things that people don't necessarily even think about. The amount of times that parents drop their kids off at school and don't have to worry about their kids being alienated in ways like that are really deep. Yeah, sure, your kids are going to be alienated in ways of other kids being bullies and stuff, but this was deeper, right? And this could have scarred Kenzie. Luckily, I think we're in a place where she didn't really 100% realize. I think all the kids were going through the motions and holding the sign and wearing the hat and doing the diploma and stuff. So I think the mechanics of it being just a process. She didn't really connect it. So I think that situation's over, but I'm happy that we could talk about it today because I just think it brings light to the fact that there are so many experiences that you and I have to go through that even some people who are closest to us don't really understand it. And
But
so
is
I
it over? Is it over? You know, we just talked about you and Adam coming back in from St. Kitts and like and customs asking you where mom was. And now Kenzie comes home with a photo saying, don't cry, mom. And, we're already having a difficult time in this country right now with the conversation around other, regardless of whether it be sex, age. Now, I mean, even, sex and gender with the LGBT community being sort of attacked constantly, especially by this administration. This administration attacks age with attacking Medicare, Medicaid. This administration, we need to do a better job generally about talking about other, and not about where we are currently as ourselves. I think that this is a much bigger conversation in because like even telling this particular story here, right? I'm not already with the response that you immediately got back from the school. It was defense and it was
yeah,
deflective and it was shame blaming. And it was like, okay, fine. I can understand like pragmatically as a human where that could have been miscommunicated. Sure. But you need to take full on acceptance and accountability that this happened under your watch, representative of your organization, which I pay a very lot of money to trust you with rearing my child. This isn't like you're not going to Target and buying like iced coffee. Like and I bring up Target for a very good reason because they also have pulled out of the
yeah,
LGBTQ movement. And I want to say that here, like there are these businesses and organizations that need to take a stand for people who are other.
yeah,
Otherwise, with representation, we fall into these stories where like, even in you telling the story, I've heard so many times of you saying, I don't know if I should feel badly about this, or I don't know how I should feel about this. I think I'm here to validate all of your feelings about it because this was your experience.
yeah.
And shame on the world for making us feel like we can't stand here and have a conversation to say, this sucks, this hurts, this keeps happening. What do we do about it?
And I completely agree with everything you're saying, like 100,000%. I think when I say like, I agree with you. This isn't over, right? And it's not over. And I think these situations should empower us to make sure that we speak up in these moments to educate people. I think the reason why I'm so able to move on from this particular situation with the school is
Sports.
because no, because of the response that we got. Right? Yes, to your point, the initial response was defense, and I didn't like that at all, and that actually completely angered me. I think where we got to though was them finally like unleashing their values to me, and that inclusivity is actually a core value for them, and this was a mistake. And so I do want to come from a place of forgiveness when people do acknowledge that this is wrong, we don't like it, this isn't who we are. But to your point, this is a much bigger issue. We have these larger companies, like this is just a school, right? This isn't that big. So this is a very micro moment that I was able to correct. I was able to insert my opinion and stand up for my family. So I did that. And I think to your point, me doing that against Target is not going to work. But our coalition group of us as an entire community and our allies, especially our allies, actually saying this is not okay, we don't like it, is what's going to move the needle there, right? Um, and I think it's not going to be over for a while. And this is what you and I had been saying for the longest time to people who voted on the other side and had their reasons to do it. And I keep saying, I'm glad you had your reasons to vote the way you did. It just sucks that none of those reasons were you or me, right? Because
You
that
said it earlier.
no,
You,
yeah,
you
go ahead.
go ahead. Sorry. I
No,
interrupted.
I just think that vote, even though maybe just one vote, because everyone's vote is just a single vote, that vote contributed to making our lives harder.
And that's what I
And
wanted to touch on just now when I was going to
yeah,
interrupt you. I was going to say
yes,
earlier, you mentioned about being angry and about being frustrated and like it arising those emotions. But those emotions only sort of come forward, in my opinion, when we hit this wall of there being no solution to fixing our hurt. Anger comes from not being able to fix your hurt.
yeah,
And, if we can come from a place of compassion and like listening to one another, we are hurting. We
yeah,
are We are scared. We are these emotions that we should not be imparting on one another because we have the level of cognizance to hold doors and smile and be good to one another and to vote in ways that like help us move forward
Yeah.
and to listen to stories about you, beautiful stories about you and Adam who are doing such a wonderful job raising Kenzie and Ollie. And I did want to take just one more second to say kudos to you for the way that you approached the entire situation because I actually was privileged enough, and thank you very much for sharing that email with me. It was not the Karen email that I would have sent. You know, it was not the shame on you, look what you've done email. It was very much how can we together make sure that this doesn't happen again for somebody else. And I just want to just take a second to give you all of the acclaim for the way that you advocate for yourself and for others. Um, and again, it's not about forming this coalition. It's about forming a level of understanding. And
Correct.
that's what this episode to me really is about is using this instance to share yet another small micro moment that like just has macro effects.
I agree. And I think coming back to like the voting thing is so people are so quick to say like, well, that's like when we say we're in fear, right? People are so quick to say, well, you shouldn't have to be fearful of that. Like, that's not going to happen. They're not going to take away gay marriage, right? And my response is like, they may not. And I hope they don't, right? Like, I hope they don't. But the fact is, we have to live wondering if they will. And so there's that level of fear that you and I have to constantly live in. And I always say, a Republican's vote is for less taxes. Your and my vote is to stay equal, right? And the fact is, we have to constantly fight just to be on an equal playing field. And that's a hard pill to swallow. And until people start to realize, like, oh crap, like that's a vote that I could be helping my people in my family, in my life that I love dearly, stay equal to me. That holds a lot more weight than saving $50 in your paycheck a month. You know what I'm saying? And so I just don't understand that if people understand like the magnitude of that for us in our community of like, we just want to be equal. That's all we want. We don't want more. We don't want anything different. We just want to be equal and we want to be left alone. And when you vote against us, that's voting to make sure that we're not equal.
I just really am surprised that equality is basically separated or conditioned by the price of eggs and toilet paper.
Which aren't going down.
Think about
Exactly. I know. That's
you
that
think
first
you
thing.
think okay, so I'll be very candid here. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the thought that originated while I was listening to you was how easy it would be for the Republican Party to just like throw its hands up on like things like abortion and gay marriage,
Yeah.
come in and say, "Hey, we're going to make taxes and all of this stuff much better too." And I think everybody would sort of adapt and kind of jump on board and be like, "You know what? Cool. Everybody gets to live their life. I don't know what's happening in the lady's life who's having an abortion. I trust that like these two gay men who are not pedophiles, have never had an instance or run in with the law, who are stand-up citizens, pay their taxes, are stand-up humans in their community who run events and are there for their community. Like we don't need to worry about.
Correct.
I think we should know now as like a country that like love and attention and sort of all the resources that we have. We are the richest country in the world. That we have everything we need to rear children and to educate ourselves and to be great and to not hate. Um, and and I was just thinking about like how great it would be if that were all the case, and if we were all on board with that. But with that being said, I'm the rambler, Bryan. I go on and on and on. You
Yeah.
always you're the one who takes us back to it, but I just get emotional about it,
I
and
know. I know.
it is.
I'm sure we'll have more stories to tell on this pod. I just wanted to bring light to this immediate situation because these things are happening to us on the regular, you know? And so I just want to make sure that you and I have a conversation about it. Um,
Thank you for sharing.
and we just make sure that we're telling people that want to listen to our story and actually want to learn. I think that's all that matters to me is if anyone wants to learn and actually truly listen, like, then come listen to our podcast because I'm happy to share my experiences and Jon is too. We put our guard down. We do not give a shit because this is our life and we want to talk about it. So, ramble on all you want. So
Yeah.
with that, guys, thank you guys so much for listening to my story. And thank you, Jon, for just helping me get through that story. So I appreciate
I got you, Bill. Love you guys. Love you, Bryan.
Love
Take
you.
care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.